So this story is from the other day, but it's too much. Quote, for all we know, he was some sort of sex slave. Son of Paul Pelosi's alleged attacker says his father is not evil, believes in human rights, and is hardly a right-wing conservative. So he said, quote, he isn't a danger to society. I don't even know if he even attacked Mr. Pelosi. For all that we know, he was some sort of sex slave, as Elon Musk pointed out. And then when I read that, I just... I don't know.
How old's that guy? 17?
19.
We had a conversation about this on this show, specifically saying, hey, he was probably tied down. Hey, Paul Pelosi was probably doing really bad things to him. We were saying the same exact things that his son is saying right now.
But maybe his son is saying it because, and I'll clarify. I think that was you saying.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Tim said it. I heard Tim say it.
Don't point the finger at me.
I said don't give him any benefit of the doubt. Let's go off with the craziest things, and let's say that's a possibility here because of the absence of evidence, because they're hiding so much information, because they're changing their story time and time again,
because they're suspending the NBC reporters who put together a very serious news report.
Who still hasn't come back to work.
Yeah.
He's still punished because he reported on what police officers were telling him actually happened on that particular day. So when you have very rich, powerful people, you'd never give them the benefit of the doubt. We shouldn't hear. And what his son says, I mean, it's important to pay attention to. He also goes on, talked about how his father, the person accused here, believes in equality, justice, how he was an activist against the war, how he was a peace activist. He was, quote, hardly a right-wing conservative. But when we look at the media, they framed this entire attack as, we need to go after all the conspiracy theorists. These conspiracy theorists are dangerous. Mm-hmm. These conservatives are dangerous. We need to stop them right now. That's the narrative that they were going with. That's the agenda that they were going with, and it failed right on its face.
I think the conservative mention is what really is like a red light to me. That they mention and call him a right-wing activist is like it puts everything else into question about the story. Not that it should, because maybe they're just picking one thing, but he's obviously like a Green Party
the other way you know that there's a lot more going on here is that the story just disappeared immediately, right? Because what they told us was that that the Speaker of the House of Representatives had her home invaded so that someone could murder her. So if that actually happened, it just seems to me like the sort of thing that we ought to be talking about a little bit more. But then when these details came out, like when NBC reported that Paul Pelosi himself opened the door, did not seem to be in distress, walked back to his alleged attacker, when it came out that this attacker actually wasn't some right-winger, he was living on some weird sort of rainbow-colored commune type thing. When all of these, when you heard the dispatch phone call, then all of a sudden, the story just completely went away.
Yep.
Just like Club Q, just like the Las Vegas shooting, just like so many other large events that we somehow don't want to talk about now, very conveniently.
They just don't sell tickets. I mean, it's impossible for them to prove a lot of the stuff they claim because there's no video that I've seen.
They have a story that works towards their benefit that they're going to use and emotionally exploit in order to push for a certain agenda. Once those version of events are different, they don't have their conclusion that they conveniently came up with as soon as the event happened right away. So, sorry, I just wanted to explain what happened.
Well, they're trying to drive a cultural shift, a narrative, and when they can't, and they stop.
For record, I mean, I believe the Pelosi's, when they're not home, they have security at the house, even when they're not there.
They're one of the richest people in the world. To think that they don't have security is absolutely crazy.
No, but think about this, too. Look at what's going on with Elon. Some dude attacked his kid.
Yeah.
And he posted the video about it. For obvious reasons, Elon's got crazy security. You think the Pelosi's, especially with their hype of January 6th, they didn't have security or something?
They've got to.
I mean,
Pelosi was calling for machine guns at the Capitol. Literally.
Every single semi-bougie millennial has so many camera security systems around his home, constantly recording on their phones all the time. Anybody who is at all in political prominence has heavy security, if not 24/7 home security. You're telling me that the person third in line to the U.S. presidency just whoopsie-daisy, didn't have any cameras and didn't have any... just absurd.
I want to point this out too. The New York Times reported the other day, quote, "How did I get into all of this? Mr. DePape wrote in one passage on his blog, Gamergate. It was Gamergate." I love that because nobody who actually knew anything about Gamergate would come out and be like, I was radicalized by Gamergate. Like, that's just not a way. That sounds like something who's not paying attention to the culture war. It sounds like something they would say to make you, like, they think they're convincing you
Right.
It's like a Patriot Front.
Right. Yeah. You come out and you say, I was radicalized by the QAnon Gamergate insurrectionist Patriot Front.
Yeah.
Hey, Quantico, is that what I was supposed to say? Okay, good. Got it.
Is Gamergate when the communists basically slid into the American zeitgeist? Was Gamergate? Was that the first moment where we start to see this this weird social movement?
Gamergate was like some chick slept with some guy in exchange for a positive review of her game.
Yeah, I still don't really know.
Right. No, but so somehow it turned into. I guess what happens is you get a lot of people then pointing out that these woke journalists are writing this fake wokeness stuff, and it becomes somewhat culture war-y. Like it does elevate to that point, but like the initial issue of Gamergate. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like somebody who read a Wikipedia entry about the culture war is trying to convince you that they were a part of it from the beginning. No. The weirdest thing about this is if the guy's kids come out and say he's not a conservative, he's a Green Party guy. But this guy is going into court and saying that he was going to target Tom Hanks and Gavin Newsom. I don't believe him. Like, here's the funny thing. This guy goes to court and makes these claims about Gamergate or whatever. He has it in a blog, I think. Not he's making the claims, but apparently he had a list. I'm like, you expect me to believe the guy who you claim attacked Paul Pelosi? He sounds crazy. I'm sorry, I'm not going to believe anything he says.
I think this is a key here, too, because people are trying to construct really sophisticated narratives about what's going on. But is it not possible, I humbly propose, that this guy is kind of crazy? He's like a crazy guy.
I think that's possible.
Yeah.
That's one explanation. I have a different explanation, and it goes kind of further down the rabbit hole, to say the least. And I think it should go down the rabbit hole, especially with how powerful, how sinister, how absolutely evil the core power inside of the United States really is, especially with all the private islands that they go to. We only are scratching at the surface to the true reality of what's happening behind the scenes there. So never give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's just speculate here. Hey, he was a sex slave. He was picked off the street. He was living in a van. He was going to be sacrificed. He was going to be tortured. He was going to be forced on by Paul Pelosi, because I'm doing what the corporate media is doing. The corporate media did that. As soon as the story broke, they said, we have in the narrative, we know exactly what happened. He did it because he hated him, because he was a right-winger. They're doing it. I'm going to do it my way. And I'll bet my bottom dollar right now, my way's probably a lot more correct than they are.
I got it. We should do a skit called it should be called we'll call it Captive, the DePap story. And it's like a guy's kidnapped and dragged into this house. And it'll be like that scene from Pulp Fiction. You guys know where I'm going with this? I'm kidding. Look, my view of this is the simple solution is he's a crazy guy. You know what I mean? I understand your point, though, Luke. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt if they're not going to release the video so we can see what happens.
In a world where Creepy Pedo Island exists, and in a world where everything, I know we're on YouTube, so I'll be really super careful, where every single thing we've been told by anyone in authority for the past 2.5 years is totally fake. In a world, then in that world, it is more reasonable to assume that Paul and Nancy Pelosi every single night are whipping and torturing this random guy than it is to believe the CNN version.
Thank you.
Of it.
Absolutely.
The CNN,
and they also have the Bohemian Grove. You know what they do at the Bohemian Grove? Mock child sacrifices to Moloch as they walk around naked in the woods. That's literally what happens, and it's documented. So
you're forcing me to disagree, but I only disagree a little because I agree with the point both of you make. Why are we going to trust the New York Times or CNN after everything they've lied about? So I would put it this way. I am willing to say, fine, this guy's kid says, for all we know, he was a sex slave, and they need to produce the evidence to prove otherwise. Now, in all sincerity, I think this guy's probably just a crazy person.
Yeah.
And I think if there was a story that made sense outside of the official narrative or the conspiracy theory, drug deal gone wrong.
Yeah, his son, I think, David DePap's son said that David was like abused growing up. I think he lived with his grandparents and they were real abusive. So he would spend his days away from home at the ocean, just like waiting for them to be asleep by the time he gets home. A messed up guy, like messed up in his childhood kind of guy. Yeah. Most sane people don't like jump at the opportunity to go deal drugs to a politician or go have sex with a politician.
Most sane people would not want to spend any time near the Pelosi.
It's too dangerous. Just for your own livelihood to get involved with that.
Let's just break something down real quick, right? I don't want to believe anything. I want proof. And so I'm willing to say your official narrative in the courts is total bunk BS because you've not explained anything properly or given us video footage. But to me, if I'm looking at a roulette wheel with a bunch of different outcomes for this story and I got to put my chips down, I'm putting it on. Why isn't there footage of it? Paul turned the cameras off because he was buying drugs. Where are the security guards? Paul told him to go take a walk because his drug dealer's showing up. If I went to you and said, do you think prominent people are doing drugs? Like everyone says yes to that.
But couldn't my only problem with that theory is, couldn't a Pelosi get a posher drug dealer? You know, when I think of my friends in New York and LA over the years who have been pharmaceutical, you know, they always go to some like rich fancy guy.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's why I think sexual.
But think about this too. The guy was a Green Party leftist, right?
Yeah.
So if you're someone like Pelosi and you need discretion, you also want to make sure you've got someone who's not going to go, it's Paul Pelosi. Oh,
Right.
we're going to own
Someone
the
you can throw under the bus later.
It's not so much that, but someone that is less likely. Like, I'm not going to invite a Grubhub driver over here who's got an Antifa profile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't want to let someone of those ideologies. We want to make sure. So for the most part, we're not really worried about deliveries. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm not saying it's true or guaranteed. I'm just saying I lean towards. I bet dude called up his Connect and said, you know, he wanted Coke or something. Told the security guards, hey, take a walk. That's why there's no security there. The reason why he told the cops, I don't know who he is, but he's a friend, is because he invited him over, but was not familiar with who he was. The reason why he answers the door politely and says, we're taking care of it, is because he doesn't want things to get out. You know, I kind of feel like dude was buying drugs.
I'm with Michael though. These people have handlers. These people have associates. These people got people that do everything for them at the snap of a finger. If you tell a handler, like, "Hey, go get me this," they'll go get it. So that's the people that they have in Washington D.C. Why wouldn't they have it in San Francisco? To me, again, why are we speculating? We shouldn't be speculating. We should be calling for more evidence. We shouldn't be giving them the benefit of the doubt. If we're going to be having a conversation here, worst possible scenario, always. And that's I think where we.
But
should
you know
take
what's
an
going to
action.
happen? We're not going to find out any more information. The story is just going to disappear because it doesn't serve their narrative, and it's really weird, and it raises a lot of questions about them.
But
they wrote a hit piece about us because we were talking about this subject, you know, a week or so ago or 2 weeks ago. The leftist media machine starts writing, you know, Timcast IRL, pushing insane conspiracies, and I'm sorry, guys in the media, if you don't have anything to actually say, you can't say anything about us. If you're like, we have no evidence, we have no idea what happens, but it's whatever the government said, it doesn't fly, and I don't care what you think.
No, it's too dangerous to make claims about what happened. This guy's life's on the line right now, David DePape. Like, he could go away to prison for the rest of his life. This guy's they want to just put it all on him.
I mean, in fairness, though, 3 hots and a cot might not be the worst thing for this guy. Like, he was not living a flourishing lifestyle beforehand. So
David DePape did not Epstein himself. I'm calling it here.
Where's his phone? I want to see the records. Was he texting? Before texting? What's his name? What's Pelosi? Paul's phone. And Paul, by the way, made a spectacular recovery. Apparently, he seems to have. I saw a picture of him and Nancy, and he looks fine.
We also have to
happy.
realize we're dealing with people that suspend journalists at NBC News and make them not come back to their work. Yeah. Okay, that's how powerful these people are.
And you know, but by the way,
you're telling me they're telling the truth here?
The way that's being covered is, NBC made a mistake and then they edited it and this wasn't like a typo in an article. There was a fully fleshed out, several minutes long TV news segment where an investigative journalist went in and covered moment by moment what happened, and then with no explanation whatsoever, NBC just pulled the report.
And another media organization,
gone.
and another media organization covered it as well. Did the same reporting based off police sources. That NBC reporter, he wasn't making things up. He wasn't speculating. He was like, I talked to this police officer and this police officer, and I saw this police report. He was documenting what actually was being reported.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.